Hello, so today I'm going to be showing you guys 2 science experiments because science. I will start off by saying these aren't the most interesting science experiments, and I got the idea to do this because my science teacher back in grade 8 used to do a bunch of science experiments to explain the topic we were on. He used them to introduce a topic, so while they may not be the most interesting if you aren't really into science, I do try to explain everything very not scientifically, I try to explain everything as well as possible, but we all know the only person who can really explain science well and get people actually invested in watching a video about science is Bill Nye, and I'm just not Bill Nye. I do apologize for that. If you find this boring, I'm sorry. And next week I will have a more entertaining video that does not kind of just appeal to those in a educational way, if that makes sense. I'll try to make a more entertaining video than just me talking about science and why it happens. If you are interested, I hope you enjoyed this video, and it is starting right now. Wow, look at that time. Hopefully when you read the title, you didn't think that I was just gonna, drink the water and say, that's how you get rid of water, because if so, you were absolutely right. Just kidding. That's my attempt at being knee-slapping hilarious. I have self-confidence issues. Key to this experiment is this. Yep, a diaper. It may seem kind of random right now, but just watch. So basically, what we're gonna go from in this experiment is this liquid to this sandy gel mixture thing. To figure out how this works, let's go back to the diaper. If you think about what a diaper's use is, I'm not gonna go into the details, you can figure it out for yourself. They essentially absorb liquid, but it's a certain substance within the diaper that is absorbing the liquid. This substance is called sodium polyacrylate, and it can absorb up to 300 times its mass in tap water, 800 times its mass in distilled water. The way it absorbs substances is through osmosis, which is pretty much diffusion but to do with water. It's a bit more complicated than just osmosis being water, diffusion being not water, but the exact definition isn't important right now. What is important is that osmosis and diffusion are movement of particles from an area of a higher concentration to a lower concentration. For example, if I have a bowl of water and I add 3 drops of food coloring, the food coloring is moving from an area where there is a lot of food coloring to places where there isn't a lot of food coloring. This keeps going until the amount of food coloring is equal throughout the whole water thing. Now, knowing what osmosis is, let's look a bit farther into why this liquid water turned into this solid gel thing. Sodium polyacrylate molecules have negative charges, which have positive sodium ions attached to them. When water is introduced, all the sodium ions have kind of gotten sick of the sodium polyacrylate and want to go meet up with that cool water molecules, although they could be warm water molecules depending on the situation. I don't know. But then the water molecules noticed that the sodium ions issue was that it just can't get along with anyone. And the sodium polyacrylate molecule is really sad that all their friends left them. So the positive ions in the water attach themselves to the negative charges on the sodium polyacrylate. And now sodium polyacrylate is just holding on dearly to those water molecules because it knows who its true friends are. So now that you know what happens and why, you can try it out for yourself. The materials you will need include ordinary tap water, 2 clear cups. You could go with just 1, I'm using 2 for demonstration. Even though they're terrible for the environment, disposable ones would be optimal, just because you probably don't want any sodium polyacrylate residue next time you want to take a drink from your glass cup thing. Yeah. And of course, sodium polyacrylate, if you don't happen to keep it lying, around your shelves, you can actually dissect a diaper to get sodium polyacrylate, and you actually get a fairly decent amount out of it. I'll put a link on how to do that on the screen right now. Or fake snow made of sodium polyacrylate would also work. And lastly, food coloring. It's not really necessary, but it makes it easier to see the effect. So now that you have your supplies, you pour your sodium polyacrylate into cup 1 and get some water in cup 2. Now, I was just eyeballing the amount of sodium polyacrylate and the amount of water I used. I don't have a certain amount of cups or anything. The amount of sodium polyacrylate I got from dissecting the diaper was just about enough. And honestly, I think with that amount, you could really fill up the whole cup if you want to. You can experiment around with how much water you want to use. You could use a little bit and get very thick gel, or you could use a lot and get a bit more loose, slushy gel. So this next part is optional. It won't really change the final product, but it makes everything a lot more visual. But you can just put a few drops of food coloring in the water, and now you're just going to pour this water into your sodium polyacrylate and stir it around a bit. And after that, you're done. You have not water, well, you will for like 3 minutes. Don't be disheartened that it does not immediately turn into gel if you put as much water as I did in. But soon enough, you will have a sandy gel-like substance. I wouldn't really say it's sandy. It's more just like how they're just little particles of it. Yeah, you can touch and play with it. It's not toxic, but again, I would not suggest putting it anywhere near your mouth or in general facial area. Like I said, this isn't something you want to be ingesting a little residue of because it can be irritating. Now at this point, you can add a bit more water if you want. Again, this will only make your substance more slushy, I guess you could say. If you want to save just a little bit, that's fine, but if you want to make it bigger, you can. It'll just be a bit more slushy. It'll still absorb all the water, but it will have difficulty in doing so. Now, if you want to take this experiment just a little bit farther, what you can do is grab some sodium chloride, otherwise known as table salt. If you just add a bit of salt to your gel thing, it breaks down, and you are once again left with water. Eventually, it takes a while, what I had to end up doing, because I had so much, because I really put maybe a bit too much water in. After it melted a bit, I put half of it in one cup, half of it in another, then put salt over both of them, and they did eventually turn back into liquid. You may be wondering, how did this happen? Or maybe not, maybe you just want the video to be over and find out who won the shoutout or not. I'll explain it anyway, because fast forward is a thing. Basically, when the table salt gets added to the gel, it turned back into water. This is because salt has a higher amount of sodium ions on the outside of the polyacrylate molecule. The water found that the sodium polyacrylate just liked to complain a lot, and that was why no one could get along with it. And the water saw some salt that looked like it could have a good time just getting introduced to the substance. It left the polyacrylate molecule, which was just in the middle of a story about why it had it worse off than the rest of the polymers. Sodium polyacrylate really couldn't take that much more rejection, and emotionally and physically collapsed and became a liquid. This is, again, osmosis. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, if you really want to, you could, April Fools, put sodium polyacrylate in someone's water bottle or something when they're not looking. But you would be a terrible person if you did that, and I'm a terrible person for even throwing that idea out there. Moving on. So, that was the video. It was okay. If you made it through this far, give yourself a pat on the back, because either you're interested in science or you just stuck it through to the shoutout. But as I said, fast forward is a thing, so if you really didn't want to see this, you could just go right through. Anyways, on that note, the shoutout is going to go to Daily Pupster TV, who guessed the theme 2 weeks ago, which was bows. That's all. See you next week, and, well, I won't see you, you'll see me. I'm just looking at a camera right now. I may see your comments, but I won't see you in person unless I see you in person. Okay, bye.